kind of talked about what our strategy there is. Staff development, very quickly, I'll tell you, very committed to try to make sure we're keeping our staff up to date, professionally developed what they need to do so they can deliver this plan to you going forward. So we are doing educational needs for each of our individual employees at the league to determine what they need to do to make them more successful and put the budget together so we can get them either to classes they need to take or programs they need to go to better enable them to serve you. So a lot of that's internal, but that's a part of the plan. Chapters. Here are the tough questions. Are chapters still viable? If so, are they positioned like they need to do what the bylaw requires them to do? The bylaws simply say this for chapters. It's a place where it's local credit unions get together so they can do networking, they can do education, they can do community involvement projects, they can do financial education initiatives, and they can deliver when we need governmental affairs support and legislative support both in Richmond and Washington, D.C. That's what the chapters are designed to do. And the other bigger question is, if the chapters are not what we need going forward, what do we need going forward? As we do in the credit union, we put together another task force. Senator Ball, Roger Ball, is chairing that for us from Call. And I hope Roger doesn't mind this, but we've been friends a long time, but I'd like to share this story. When we were thinking about who to chair this, because this can get a little hairy. I mean, some people feel very strong about their chapters and the way they operate, and we understand that. But I called Roger up, I said, Roger, I think you'd be good to chair this. And Roger said, I'm not sure about this one. And so we thought about it and talked. He said, well, let me think about it. He came back, and Roger said, I'll chair it for you, but you need to know this. If I'm going to chair it, we're really going to look at this issue, and there's probably going to be something done differently with chapters than it is today. And I said, Roger, that's exactly what we need. Because there are a lot of chapters in this state that need to do something different than what they've done in the past. I believe in chapters. I think our staff believes in chapters. I think our board believes in chapters. But let me tell you what we're facing today. We have one, and I won't tell you what chapter it is in the state. We just came off, had a very successful credit union chapter days in Richmond. I applaud Richmond Credit Union Southside. We had one of our chapter liaisons go to a chapter meeting in this state, which had about 40 credit union people at the chapter meeting, and asked, how many of you are coming to credit union day at the chapter? And not a single hand went up in the room. Now, I got to tell you, that's not good. That is not going to deliver for us in Richmond, in Washington, D.C., when we all talk about the grassroots we are. That's one chapter, but that was a concern. So what do we have to do? League staff had to get on the phone, call a couple credit unions, beg, whatever you want to get people there. They did. They did. So nobody, no delegate or senator would have seen the difference. But that's just an example that I think we've got to get after. So the Chapter Effectiveness Task Force has had their first meeting. We had some information from the survey that Nicole had gotten for us. We've reviewed that. We've looked at where the chapters may be going forward. And I don't know if that means mergers or something different. There's a book entitled Race for Relevancy by Harrison Cover. I was at an VACUL meeting along with your chairman, Bob Petty, and Terry Childress, and we were there listening to Harrison. He wrote a book for nonprofit associations. And we all sit there at 3 said, man, this looked like it was written for the credit union system. So we've got that book. We've put it in place with the chapter task force for them to read it. The league board's reading it. Our management team is reading it. And it talks about chapters. It talks about committees at the league and how many you need, and basically, if you read the book, what it says is, chapters are gone by the way of the dinosaur. You need to do something different, and you need something locally, don't know what that is, but the format of the chapters. So, all of that's being looked at in this issue as we've got more non-affiliates, and the 19 non-affiliates we have today. There have been some questions, and that's really not an issue here for Southside and Richmond, because I don't think we have one non-affiliated credit union in those two chapters. But in Northern Virginia, in Tidewater, where our majority of our non-affiliates are, there have been some issues about them coming to chapter meetings when they're not paying CUNA dues, not paying league dues, and they're getting the benefit, will it be league staff or others, of information that all of you in this room have paid for. Now, I don't know where you come down on that. The survey was kind of mixed results, how people felt about that, whether or not you should allow them to come, and if so, should you charge them more. But anyway, this task force that Roger is leading is going to look at that issue. And by the way, Violet West, I know Violet's here, is on that as well. Violet, thank you for serving. So they've already gone to work looking at that. We are spending a lot of some of our resources to make sure we're putting chapter liaisons in place. We're making a commitment to that. We've got some of our management team representing some of the chapters on that. We're giving them talking points every month, consistent message, making them available to the chapter offices to make sure that we can help them any way possible to have an effective chapter producing for credit unions in that area. So, don't know where all this is going. They will be working in that over the course of the summer, and we're going to have a pretty busy planning session in September. That'll be coming back to the board as well. Okay, Richmond office. This is not new. It's come up at least 3 or 4 times since I've worked in the league. I know it came up a couple times when Gene Farley was president. It came up fairly soon after I became president, and the board looked at that, and what we decided to do was to open an office in Richmond, which we did about a block over from the Capitol, which serves our purposes there. We have one office there. We have it throughout the course of the year, particularly use it during the General Assembly session, but when our staff's coming through Richmond, they can use it. We are going to do a cost-benefit analysis that RB Terry and I are working on, and we'll bring that to the board in September. And I reckon that cost-benefit will determine whether or not we move our entire organization or parts of it to Richmond. We do own land going out 460 west of Lynchburg. We bought it back in the 60s for about $65,000. It's worth a whole lot more than that now. We're just waiting, and we've got it up for sale. We're waiting for that. Everything's moving out that way, so we hope Walmart. Walmart needs to open up in the west of Lynchburg, but we're waiting for that day. Here's the vision, folks. So bear with me a little bit. A lot of this plan's about a new vision for credit unions in this state. If we had a Richmond location and built a top-notch education facility that you could bring your directors, management team, CEOs, and staff for a whole series of conferencing that goes on, it's pretty good. Pretty progressive, pretty bold. I think credit unions in Richmond, I think Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, Tidewater would respond to that. And when I was over in Roanoke the other day, and we're asking a question, we would be moving further from that part of the state. And one had addressed, well, couldn't you do that in Lynchburg? I said, yes, we could. You could build it, but would that come? Don't think so. As we view it, we don't believe credit unions, where the primary number of credit unions runs the Northern Virginia down to Richmond, down to the Peninsula, down to Tidewater, would come to Lynchburg if we built it in Lynchburg. Might come to visit us, and Lynchburg's a nice town, but don't think they would consistently come. That's pretty good vision. Now, legislative. talking about stepping it up and getting some, have the same facility with a top-notch facility there to do legislative events, breakfasts, lunches, dinners, reception, where we invite you or invite your individual credit union to meet with your individual delegate, your individual senator, your individual congressman. Pretty good. Pretty good idea. Pretty bold. Pretty progressive. So the vision that we get to Richmond and have that for education facility and governmental affairs legislative house, similar to Credit Union House on Capitol Hill, that's paid such good dividends for us. Very interested in hear from the Richmond group how you feel about that. Okay.
That's how it's on the floor.
On the floor.
Oh,
Put your top in.
I've walked myself, I've talked so much, I've walked myself
That's,
over
that
here.
needs to go up with that.
I know it does. That's all right.
Okay.
I've only got 2 more to finish, so rather than hold you up here. Governance. We looked at that 6 years ago. We changed to the current format that we have today, which I'll show you. But essentially, the board said, hey, we need to look at governance moving forward, make sure we are structured like we need to do for the individuals that you elect to your league board. So there will be a task force in 2013 to look at that issue and bring recommendations back to the league board. And I reckon I should have made one other point on the Richmond office. Ultimately, Virginia credit unions will decide whether or not we move to Richmond, because the bylaws require that the office be in Lynchburg. So there would be a bylaw amendment, assuming the cost benefit works out, and that would be coming before you in 2013 would be the plan. And if you vote to do that, then we would work to get that implemented in 2013 and 2014. And that could be moving the entire operation or portions of it. But it would be in the hands of credit unions here. Y'all would cast that vote to our members. Same thing here on the governance task force. This is a makeup today. As you know, we have 4 regions, Richmond and Southside being together, and Region 2. And we have 4 chapters in Region 4, Nova and Central Virginia in Region 3, Hampton Roads, Tidewater. We have 13 directors, 8 regional, 4 come from 50 million up assets, 4 come from under 50 million in assets, and we have 5 at large. So the question is, do we need 13 directors moving forward, or with the number of mergers consolidating going down, should the board of directors be a smaller number moving forward? So that will be looked at, and again, whatever recommendations come from that, y'all would vote on that as members. We also have in our plan to look at our governance committees. These are just a list of committees to say, hey, do we have the right number, too many? Do we need to combine some? So all of that's being looked at as well. And these are just task forces we talked about during the course of the strategic plan. Finally, I'll close on the last one, dues. And obviously, that's something that the board and management has to keep at the forefront. We are constantly evaluating our current dues schedule. We're constantly looking at our trends. A lot of assets going into large credit unions now. Still, we're having a lot of mergers going on. Whatever we do in this area would ultimately be addressed by a bylaw amendment where credit unions in this state determine what the dues schedule is for credit unions, not the board, not the management, individual credit unions do. And that's usually dealt with by the Budget and Dues Committee with recommendations to the league board, and then a bylaw amendment goes. Here's the impact just today of our 19 non-affiliated credit unions. It cost us today $300,000 in dues. I'd love to have $300,000 in dues. Might be able to add another staff person out there and consultant working with mid and small credit unions if we had it. We don't have it. Certainly would help in governmental affairs, would help in compliance, would help in education across the board. So We are trying to look at ways to bring some of these affiliated credit unions back. Just recently, over the last 2 or 3 years, mergers are another $80,000 on us. Just saw where we got 2 more mergers taking place in this state, just came across my desk last week. So that trend will probably continue. So a combination of that, the board has to look at. Obviously, RB, our CFO, Kathy Smith, our HR person, Brian Walden, our IT person, and Carolyn, my boss there. And by the way, if you call the office here in the next week or 2, I think this Wednesday, Carolyn will celebrate 46 years with the league. So if you do happen to call her or email her, I know she'd like to hear from you. Budget and Dues Committee will begin to review in 2013, next year. Not going to happen this year. Whatever recommendations they would come up with would go to the board next year. If we were to bring something to you, it would probably be 2014. You'd vote it up, vote it down, and then if we did a new dues schedule, it'd be something in 2015. So that's all depending on what happens with affiliations, mergers, and that sort of thing. That could delay that schedule. But don't go back and say we had one CEO that left one of our town hall meetings, went back to their CFO and said, the lid's raising dues. That's not the message today. No, we're not. But I think we have to be prudent to study the dues. So in closing, before we get to the Q&As, got 11 key initiatives here. I think we've tried to look at where we think credit unions are going and how we can best add value to your dues and try to stay relevant as an organization. The idea here is we want to continue to be a leader for the credit unions in this state. We want to continue to be an organization that looks out to the future and is on that futuristic path so that we are trying to do things that impact you in a positive way. And we want to continue to be what I think we've always been, a trusted partner, a partner that credit union boards, CEOs, management team can call us and know they're going to get a solution to the issue they have, and they'll get the confidential nature of that discussion between the league and their credit union and get that advice with whatever staff person they're talking to there. So with that, that is the Virginia Credit Union League 2012-2014 strategic plan, the 11 key